Okay, so if you picture Confucius, right, like some, peaceful, like detached sage, buried in these ancient skulls, like completely removed from all the craziness of the world, well, get ready to rethink that whole image.
Yeah, it's actually kind of mind-blowing how entangled he was in all the political drama going down back then.
No kidding.
Like, he wasn't just, theorizing from some ivory tower. He was dead set on becoming like a top-level statesman and shaping the future of Luda.
He wanted to get his hands dirty and fix things.
Totally.
But, as usual, the climb to power, not exactly a straight shot.
Please?
He backs Duke Zhao early on, which turned out to be not the best bet, and then there's that famous story about him turning down Yang Hu thinking he was way too radical.
Right.
So it makes you wonder why this early reluctance towards both sides, and then BAM! Around age 50, both Yang Hu and those powerful Three Huan families are suddenly knocking on his door.
It's a total 180, right?
Yeah.
What's that tell us about how his political game was changing?
That's the puzzle we're piecing together in this deep dive. The sources we've been combing through show Lu in this state of constant flux and Confucius, right there, smack dab in the middle, trying to keep his footing as the ground shifts beneath him.
Okay, so zoom out a little bit to the bigger picture.
Okay.
The state of Lu, around the time Confucius hits 50, is anything but stable.
Yeah.
Another civil war kicks off, and things get real messy real fast.
And at the center of this whole storm is Yang Hu,
Right.
who's managed to grab a good chunk of power as the chief steward for the Ji family, one of the big Three Huan families.
Just to catch everyone up, listener,
Yeah.
these Three Huan families were these super powerful noble clans in Lu, and they'd built up a ton of control, often at the Duke's expense.
Yeah.
So Yang Hu, as the Ji family's main guy, he had pull, but not real legit authority, kind of operating in the shadows, and he knew it was a risky position to be in.
It's like he's pulling strings but not actually in charge.
Right.
So what does he do? Comes up with this crazy plan to solidify his power?
Yep.
Wipe out the Three Huan families completely?
Take them out, crush their power base, the whole 9 yards.
Bold move.
Bold is putting it mildly.
But as we know, it doesn't go to plan.
Not even close.
Meng Yizi, another head honcho from the Three Huans, and get this, a former student of Confucius,
Yeah.
ends up playing a key role in shutting down Yang Hu's assassination plot,
Yeah.
who fails, and we're left with this tense standoff.
It's like a game of chess with the highest stakes imaginable.
Right. Three Huans have the Duke, they've got the capital, big advantage,
Yeah.
but they're constantly looking over their shoulders.
Like always on edge.
And that's the key point here.
Okay.
Both sides, locked in this super fragile balance of power, they suddenly see Confucius as this, like, secret weapon.
Yeah.
Someone who could swing things in their favor and shatter that deadlock.
Now you might be thinking, wait, Confucius?
Yeah.
Why him?
Yeah, why him?
Right. He wasn't exactly a political rock star up till then.
He was more of a teacher and philosopher.
Yeah. What made him so irresistible to these warring factions?
Well, the key is what Confucius was doing in the years leading up to this turning point. He'd gone all in on education, and maybe even more important, he built up this huge network of students.
Right.
And I'm not talking about kids just soaking up knowledge.
Right.
I'm talking capable people with real administrative skills and, listen to this, ambition.
He wasn't just churning out scholars.
Exactly.
He was creating a movement.
Yes.
So now, all of a sudden, this whole group of trained, motivated individuals, that's a serious source of talent and influence.
That's power.
Right. And it's such a contrast to, like, 15 years earlier during Duke Zhao's mess when Confucius was basically begging for a job and nobody gave him the time of day.
Yeah.
Now he's leading a pack.
Yeah. All right, so picture this. We've got two powerful but shaky factions fighting for control, and all of a sudden, Confucius, the guy who couldn't get a foot in the door politically before, is being wooed by both sides.
What a turnaround.
So, big question for you listening. Which side would Confucius pick? The Three Huan families? Kinda his old bosses, even though they were problematic?
Yeah.
Or Yang Hu, who might have even been related to him?
This is where things get really spicy.
Okay.
The Analects, in that Yang Huo chapter, throws us a curveball.
Okay.
Mentions this guy, Gongshan Fuzhou, a steward in the Ji family, one of the Three Horns, launching a full-blown rebellion.
Wow.
He takes over this strategically vital city, Faicheng, and goes head-to-head with Ji Huanzi.
Faicheng was a major power center for the Ji family, basically their stronghold.
And get this, Gongshan Fuzhou calls on Confucius to join him.
Whoa!
And Confucius at first is actually thinking about going.
That is so not the Confucius we think we know.
Yes.
Like, totally clashes with the image of him as this big supporter of order and stability.
It has scholars scratching their heads even today.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't add up to the picture of this calm, super ethical philosopher.
Right.
But the Analects aren't fiction. They're considered pretty historically accurate.
Oh, yeah.
So we got to ask, what was going through Confucius's mind?
Yeah, what was he thinking?
Was he actually siding with a rebel, or was there something else going on?
If we zoom out again, use the Zuo's Huan to fill in some gaps, we see that Gongshan Farao was a hardcore Yang Hu ally.
Oh.
So this rebellion wasn't just some random event.
Yeah.
It was part of Yang Hu's bigger strategy against the Three Huans.
Right.
So when Gongshan invites Confucius, it's basically an invite from Yang Hu's side, even if Yang Hu himself was busy with other stuff at the time.
So they're looking for any edge they can get.
Yeah. But the question is, did Confucius actually go through with it?
The answer, and luckily for his future career, is no.
Okay.
The Analects tell us that Zilu, his super devoted student, put his foot down.
Oh yeah, Zilu's not messing around.
Yeah, he basically says, Master, are you kidding? This is a disaster waiting to happen. There's got to be a better option.
Yeah.
What's interesting is how Confucius reacts.
Okay.
He doesn't just brush Zilu off.
Instead, he comes back with this grand vision, name-dropping King Wen and King Wu of Zhou, the guys who founded a dynasty known for, like, restoring order from chaos. Yeah. And he says he wants to do something similar in the East, meaning Lu, just like they did in the West.
Whoa, talk about ambition.
Yeah. It's a powerful statement, right? Shows how badly he wanted to change the political game.
Yeah.
But as our sources point out, there's this subtle hint underneath it all.
Okay.
Both Confucius and Zilu, they kind of let on that they know there's another safer option out there. So why didn't Confucius just say no to Gongshan right away? Was he actually considering it, or was this all a calculated pause?
It makes you think.
While all this was happening, the Three Huan families, Yang Hu's main rivals, they were desperate to get Confucius on their side.
They needed him badly.
They saw him as this key player who could help them through this whole mess.
So let's get into their heads for a minute.
Okay.
Why would these families, who'd been, let's say, less than friendly to Confucius before, suddenly want him in their corner?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Our sources point to a few reasons.
Okay.
Starting with their very shaky position in this whole civil war.
They might have the Duke in the capital,
Yeah.
but Yang Hu's crew is still a huge threat.
Still lurking.
They basically needed someone to bring back some stability.
Right?
The old order was shattered, and they needed someone with, like, credibility, someone influential to help put things back together and solidify their power.
They'd lost their footing.
Plus, don't forget Meng Yizi's connection to Confucius.
Oh yeah, right?
They were teacher and student once.
That's got to count for something.
That relationship probably helped a lot with communication and negotiation.
Built a bridge.
Now, got to remember the political climate in the spring and autumn period.
Okay.
It wasn't exactly a time of unwavering loyalty or rock-solid alliances.
No.
Power was the name of the game, and even families could turn on each other in a heartbeat.
It's a dog-eat-dog world.
Right. So old loyalties, even past grudges, they all took a back seat to staying alive and staying on top.
Survival of the fittest, politically speaking.
Now, this is where Confucius's own political philosophy kind of lines up with what the Three Huans wanted.
Okay.
He was all about this hierarchical system based on what the Duke of Zhou laid down,
Okay.
where vassals answer to the ruler, nobles answer to vassals, and so on.
Right. Everyone has their place.
And while that ultimately supports the Duke's authority, in the short term, it also gave legitimacy to these powerful families like the Three Huans.
As long as they kept things running smoothly in their own territories.
So it wasn't just about siding with the stronger team for Confucius.
No.
Aligning with these families, even with all their flaws, kind of fit with his core belief in social stability.
Even if it wasn't the ideal order under the Duke.
Exactly. They weren't looking for him to, like, empower the Duke at their expense.
No way.
They wanted him to give their rule the stamp of approval.
And crucially, they wanted him to keep those lesser nobles in check.
Within their territory.
Yeah, prevent more unrest and challenges to their power.
Basically, they saw him as this, like, peacemaker and someone who'd back up their claim to power with, like, intellectual weight.
He was the brains and they were the brawns.
So what did Confucius do?
Yeah, what was his final decision?
Even though he was initially thinking about joining Gongshan in Faicheng, he ultimately goes with the Three Huan families.
So what changed his mind?
Our sources offer a few possibilities.
Okay.
The simplest explanation is that he realized the Three Huans had more power and that Yang Hu's side was probably losing steam.
It's the smart move.
Joining the stronger team just made strategic sense.
Right.
But there's also this intriguing idea that he might have been faking his interest in joining Yang Hu's rebellion
Oh, playing mind games.
to get a sweeter deal from the Three Huans.
Like, oh, you want me? You better make it worth my while.
It's a calculated move, a little bit of political brinkmanship.
So do we have any proof Confucius was capable of that kind of maneuvering?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's tough to say for sure. Direct evidence is hard to come by. But there are parallels to what he did around his mother's funeral,
Okay.
where he kind of strategically presented himself to gain some noble status.
Interesting.
Shows a practical side underneath all the idealistic goals.
So maybe he was playing the field a bit?
Yeah, ultimately, even with all the strategy, his main drive was still those political ideals.
Yeah.
He needed a platform to make his vision happen.
Yeah.
And at that time, the Three Huans were the best bet.
They were the ones holding the keys.
Maybe their offer just lined up better with his long-term goals for Liu.
Too. So what happens next?
Yeah, what's the fallout?
It's pretty remarkable, actually.
Yes, yeah.
Confucius doesn't just get some minor gig.
No,
He rockets up the ranks of Liu's political structure.
he's on the fast track.
Later on, he talks about reaching what he calls the will of heaven at 50.
Yeah,
And looking back, it seems pretty clear he saw this as his big chance to reshape Liu and build a new, more ordered society.
his time had come.
And the speed of it all is just mind-blowing. Within a year, he's the fourth highest official in Lus, right up there with the big Three Huan oligarchs.
Think about that.
From relatively unknown teacher to the inner circle of power in just 12 months.
That's insane.
The Shiji, the records of the Grand Historian, lays out his early roles,
Okay.
hints at some lower-level positions to get him warmed up, but then, boom, he's appointed Minister of Justice, the Dasi coup.
That's a huge jump right into the heart of loose power structure. Something almost unheard of for someone like him.
It's like skipping all the steps and going straight to the top.
Yeah.
Now, the Minister of Justice back then, that was a big job.
Okay.
Covered everything to do with law and order, from making laws to enforcing them, running courts and prisons, the whole deal.
Sounds like a lot on his plate.
It was a huge responsibility, needed a deep understanding of how to govern,
Yeah.
but it doesn't stop there.
Oh, no.
He gets promoted again to senior minister, the Shang de Fu,
Wow.
which puts him directly in the state council alongside the heads of the Three Huan families.
So he's in the room where it happens,
Yes.
shaping every major decision that affects Liu.
What's really significant here is that Confucius, who wasn't from one of these established noble families, reaches such a high position.
Yeah, he's an outsider.
This probably meant someone from a traditional noble lineage, maybe even from the Zhengsin family, got pushed aside.
That's got to ruffle some feathers.
It's a clean break from centuries of doing things the old way.
Driven by the Three Huan's urgent need for his talents.
They needed him that badly.
It's worth pointing out that Yang Hu, powerful as he was, never got a title like this.
Right.
Confucius had the official rank and the attention of the people in charge.
So what was life like for Confucius as one of the top dogs in Luo?
Yeah, paint us a picture.
Our sources show him attending all these court ceremonies, participating in these crucial council meetings, alongside the Three Huan families and the Duke, who was basically a figurehead at this point.
So he's right in the thick of it.
Yeah, but there's a catch.
Okay.
Even though he rose through the ranks quickly, he didn't actually have much hands-on experience running a big state.
So he's learning on the fly.
Exactly. With guidance and connections from, you guessed it, the Three Huan families.
They're basically his mentors, whether he likes it or not.
Gotta remember, government was different back then.
Okay.
Nobles mostly ran their own little territories, their fiefdoms, instead of holding official government jobs like we think of them today, right?
So Confucius gets this mansion in Quofu, his base of operations.
Now, at first, his main focus as Minister of Justice seems to be settling disputes between all these nobles.
So he's like a referee.
Yeah, and maybe a less demanding job, which he often handed off to his capable students like Zilu.
Zilu was always the efficient one.
And Confucius's whole philosophy of justice, you can see it in the Analects.
Okay.
He was all about fairness and finding peaceful solutions.
Over strict rules and harsh punishments.
Yeah, he wanted both sides to see each other's point of view and prevent future conflict.
A very people-centric approach.
Absolutely. All those years of teaching really paid off. Because when Yang Hu left, there were gaps to fill. And his students, who were skilled, eager, and loyal, stepped right in.
They were ready.
And let's not forget the perks.
Oh, yeah, everyone loves a good perk.
His salary was massive, hundreds of thousands of caddies of grain.
Whoa.
Remember, coins weren't the main currency yet.
Right.
This was a big difference from the Three Huan families, who got most of their wealth from their land.
They weren't going to give him land, but they definitely paid him well.
So now he's established himself in Luna's leadership, right? Confucius is ready to chase his bigger vision.
Okay.
This is his second major transformation.
After going from commoner to someone with noble connections.
He's gone from scholar to high-ranking official.
It's like leveling up in a video game.
But this new power, it came with strings attached.
Oh, yeah. Nothing's free.
The Three Huans didn't promote him out of the goodness of their hearts.
Yeah,
They wanted results.
What were they expecting from him?
Their top priority was clear. Clean up Yang Hu's mess and improve Lu's reputation on the world stage.
They needed damage control.
Yang Hu's actions had destabilized everything, not just Lu itself, but the whole balance of power in the region.
It was like a ripple effect.
And here's the thing. It's pretty rare for a minister of justice, someone who's supposed to focus on law and order inside the state,
Right.
to be given big diplomatic responsibilities.
Yeah, it's not their usual gig.
This shows how extraordinary the situation was and how much the Three Huans needed him.
So what made Confucius, with his background in teaching and ethics, the right guy for this job?
That's a good point.
Right.
It wasn't that he was some master diplomat.
No.
It was his moral authority and his network.
Okay.
The Three Huans probably figured his reputation for integrity and his connections in other states, which he built up while traveling with Duke Zhao, would be valuable assets in rebuilding alliances.
They were banking on his reputation.
The situation was pretty dire for Lu.
Okay.
The state was weak and isolated after Yang Hu's rebellion.
And they had no allies.
And one big worry was Yang Hu himself.
Oh, yeah. What's he up to?
He'd gone to the powerful state of Jin, found himself a patron in Zhao Jianzi, a real power player in Jin.
Not good.
So to counter this threat, Lu needed to make some friends, and the most logical partner was Jin's longtime rival, the state of Qi.
Okay.
But that wasn't so easy.
Why not?
Relations between Lu and Qi had been strained for years.
Oh, yeah.
Ever since Duke Zhao was exiled to Qi.
Right.
But here's where Confucius's past comes in handy.
Okay.
Years earlier, when he was with Duke Zhao in exile in Qi, he'd gotten to know the Qi elite, including Duke Jing himself.
So he had some insider knowledge.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
gave him a level of familiarity the Three Huans just didn't have.
That's got to be valuable.
At first, he focuses on figuring out if Qi was even open to an alliance.
Testing the waters.
And while the details are a little fuzzy, we know he sent his students to Qi.
Okay.
The Analytes even mentioned some back and forth about their travel expenses.
Oh, the logistical stuff.
Yeah. But Qi was interested. They saw a benefit in teaming up with Lu against Jin.
Enemy of my enemy is my friend.
By the summer of his 52nd year, Confucius had set up a big summit between Lu and Qi at Jiagu, a strategically important spot.
Okay.
He was like the event planner, handling all the details.
Making sure everything runs smoothly.
This meeting at Jiagu becomes one of his big diplomatic achievements.
Okay. Tell me about it.
Now, the Zhuan gives this pretty dramatic account of the summit.
Oh, yeah.
Claims that Qi tried to kidnap Duke Ding of Lu during the whole thing,
Jeez,
using local tribesmen to do their dirty work.
That's sneaky.
But Confucius steps in, confronts the Qi reps, makes sure the Duke's safe.
Sounds like a scene from a movie.
It's a good story,
Yeah,
but
right.
our sources also suggest a more likely scenario.
Okay.
The summit probably went pretty well.
Less exciting.
Yeah, both Qi and Lu had a strong reason to team up against Jin.
A common enemy.
Qi was already fighting Jin, so stirring up trouble with Lu through a kidnapping just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, that'd be counterproductive.
The Zhuan, being from Lu's perspective, might have jazzed up the story a bit.
To make Confucius look like a hero.
Right, and to emphasize how important the Lu delegation was.
Okay, so propaganda mixed with history.
Exactly. Later accounts, like in the Warring States period and Sima Qian's Shiji, they just amped up the drama even more.
So who knows what really went down?
But regardless of all the theatrics, the outcome was a big win for Lu.
They got what they wanted.
Qi and Lu officially became allies against Jin, and Qi even gave back some land they'd taken from Lu before.
Not bad.
But Confucius doesn't stop there.
He's on a roll.
He brings in the states of Zheng and Wei.
Wow, building a coalition.
Both of them had their own issues with Jin because of what Yang Hu had done during his time calling the shots in Lu.
So Yang Hu's legacy is coming back to bite them.
Yeah, by the time he's 53, Confucius has created this four-state Eastern anti-Jin alliance.
That's a major power move.
It's a huge diplomatic win.
Yeah.
Strengthens Li's security and raises their profile in the region.
So what's next on his agenda?
Well, with all that diplomacy sorted out, Confucius turns his attention to this long-standing internal problem in Luga.
Okay.
The Three Huan families having way more power than the Duke.
Back to the power struggle.
His solution. Bold, maybe even a little risky.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
The demolishing the three capitals plan.
That sounds serious.
The idea was to weaken the Three Huans militarily by taking down the walls of their fiefdoms, which had gotten as big and powerful as the capital itself, Quofu.
So he's going right for their source of power.
It's a direct challenge to their independence and influence.
Pretty audacious considering he owes his position to them.
Yeah, the irony isn't lost on us.
No.
But for Confucius, his commitment was to this bigger vision of order.
Even if it meant shaking things up for the people who helped him climb the ladder.
What does that say about his priorities?
Shows where his true loyalty lies.
His strategy's pretty smart, though.
Okay, how so?
He starts with Feiqing, Jiwanzi's stronghold, which is controlled by Gongshan Furao, Yang Hu's old buddy.
Using that connection.
Exactly. His past contact with Gongshan becomes a strategic advantage.
He's playing the long game.
But it's a mixed bag in terms of results.
Okay.
Shu Sin Wushu, probably the weakest of the three Huan leaders politically, goes ahead and dismantles the walls of his capital.
So one down.
But Feiqing, that's a tougher nut to crack.
What happens?
Gongshan Furao attacks Quofu directly.
Wow, bold move.
Tries to capture Duke Ding.
So they're upping the stakes.
Confucius and his students, including Zilu, they defend Corfu,
Okay.
fight off Gongshan's attack, and eventually take back Feiqing.
Nice.
Zilu's put in charge of the city, and he appoints this young guy, Gao Chai, to a key position.
Even though Confucius wasn't so sure about him.
Yeah, thought he was too inexperienced.
But Zilu's like, hey, you learn by doing.
Turns out he was right.
Practical guy.
Now, Meng Yizi, he wasn't exactly enthusiastic about the whole plan.
Dragging his feet.
Pretends to be on board by staging a little rebellion in Chingi.
It doesn't actually commit.
And the walls there stay up.
So, bottom line. Demolishing the three capitals mostly fails.
Yeah.
Probably cost Confucius some trust with the three Huan families.
They weren't happy about their power being challenged.
Understandable.
It might have earned him some points with the Duke.
Who would benefit from the nobles having less power?
It's a perfect example of how Confucius was constantly trying to balance his ideals with the realities of politics.
Trying to do what's right while playing the game.
So, to wrap up our deep dive today,
Okay.
we've seen that Confucius was way more than just a philosopher.
Yeah.
He was a practical, ambitious political player who jumped at the chance to make a real difference in Lucy.
He wasn't just sitting on the sidelines?
His rise to power at 50 was fast and strategic.
A meteoric rise.
He had big diplomatic wins and faced some tough challenges trying to put his reforms into action.
It's a more complicated story than we usually hear.
Definitely challenges the idea of him as just an academic.
Sure.
He was a master strategist, navigating the tricky world of spring and autumn period politics with this mix of idealism and, let's face it, cunning.
He was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers.
So here's a final thought for you to ponder.
Okay.
Given how Confucius mixed those high ideals with strategic moves,
Yeah,
what do you think was his ultimate measure of success?
that's a good question.
Was it the alliances he built, his short but influential time in high office, or the lasting impact of his teachings?
All those things had an impact.
And maybe even more important, how relevant are his experiences navigating power and making change to the challenges we face in the world today?
It's a question worth thinking about.
We encourage you to keep exploring the spring and autumn period and Confucius's legacy.
Yeah,
There's always more to discover when you dig a little deeper.
definitely.
And that's our deep dive for today.
See you next time.
Take care.
Bye.